All right, we are back with Captain America #3 from J. Michael Straczynski. So the first two issues weren't a ton to write home about. We saw JMS doing his old trick like he did with Amazing Spider-Man, where it's like the real origin before the origin, which he likes to do with these comics, which actually slows things down and is a little rough to read. So it's been a couple sloggy issues where there's been a lot of going back and talk back to literal Nazis. And it was kind of weird because the literal Nazis pretty much just like gave a speech, like, with their free speech. And we're offering like sandwiches and things like that to a scrawny Steve Rogers who's like homeless. And Steve Rogers like, no, I'm not going to take your charity because you're literal Nazis. So literal Nazis like literally weren't doing anything bad. And Steve Rogers has to virtue signal anyway. I guess that's how things work here. He's also become a landlord in this and is like, I don't know, giving people free rent. It's kind of weird. The rent's too high. So it's super boring so far. We get into this one, and he's investigating like these deaths with Misty Knight. And there's this weird writing on the wall, and it looks like it's tied into some mystical stuff and also tied into AIM. It's pretty slow down, and it's very weird. Like Straczynski's like had a habit in a lot of these comics, like where all the characters kind of talk the same. Captain America like is talking like a modern character rather than like somebody out of the 40s. Stephen Strange. They kind of quip back and forth, like, and this is exactly what he did, like with the Spider-Man stuff, and that kind of fit in Spider-Man, but it doesn't fit with these characters. So it's kind of just a mischaracterization right there as they kind of figure out what's going on with this whole situation here. And again, not much happens. He again harkens back to the Nazi era, and he argues with the Nazis here, and then he eventually gets taken in by the mob, and the mob is like, "Hey, bro, like, I'm not down with that Nazi jive." And they're presented as like, well, we're bad, but we're not as bad as the literal Nazis. We know how this goes. And it's just a bunch of talking scenes, talking heads over the course of this, like it's written for TV, not for comics, which I guess makes sense as it goes through here. Finally, like AIM creates this like villain who's called like the Emissary, which I don't know if that's a tie to Deep Space Nine or not. I don't get it. Who's got like a demon infused in the guy, and he shows up at the end, and it looks like we're finally going to get to have a superhero battle next issue. So again, we just have a sort of like very stiff looking art with very like dry looking colors in it. I guess like it's supposed to evoke that 1930s kind of feel, I guess. And again, like we're kind of in a weird historical thing where the Nazis like are not really America's enemies at this point, and yet Steve Rogers is acting like they are, because again, we didn't get into the conflict until later in in the war, right? So it's kind of weird that that's going on. It doesn't quite fit time period wise either, and it's just too slow of a start. We're 3 issues in, and like we've barely introduced the main villain. We've barely like not even had a superhero battle yet. This is kind of wild to start off a series like this. So I call this a 5.5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10. I mean, there's not that bad of parts to it. At least it's something you can get through a little bit. But hopefully the next issue finally picks up, because this is way too slow of a start. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.